Have you ever wondered why good people sometimes suffer? Why do faithful hearts face painful trials? Today, we will explore the incredible story of Joseph, a young man whose life was filled with betrayal, hardship, and waiting. Yet through it all, God was preparing him for a greater purpose. Our journey begins in the land of Canaan. Joseph was the beloved son of Jacob. His father loved him deeply and gave him a beautiful robe of many colors. This special gift made Joseph's brothers jealous. They felt that their father loved Joseph more than anyone else. One night, Joseph had an unusual dream. In his dream, he and his brothers were tying bundles of grain in a field. Suddenly, Joseph's bundle stood upright while the bundles of his brothers bowed down before it. When Joseph shared this dream, his brothers became angry. "Do you really think you will rule over us?" they asked. Later, Joseph had another dream. This time, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowed down before him. Even his father wondered what the dream meant, but he kept these things in his heart. As time passed, Joseph's brothers allowed jealousy to grow into hatred. One day, Jacob sent Joseph to check on his brothers as they cared for the family's flocks. When they saw Joseph coming from a distance, they made a terrible plan. "Here comes the dreamer," they said. "Let's kill him." But Reuben, the oldest brother, wanted to save Joseph. Instead of killing him, they threw Joseph into an empty pit. A little later, a caravan of traders passed by on their way to Egypt. Judah had an idea. "Why kill our brother? Let's sell him instead." The brothers agreed. For 20 pieces of silver, they sold Joseph as a slave. Joseph cried out for help, but no one listened. The caravan carried him farther and farther away from his home, his father, and everything he had ever known. To hide their sin, the brothers dipped Joseph's colorful robe in goat's blood and brought it to Jacob. When Jacob saw the robe, he believed that a wild animal had killed his beloved son. His heart was broken, and he mourned for Joseph many days. Meanwhile, Joseph arrived in Egypt as a slave. Everything he had loved was gone. His family, his freedom, his future. But one thing remained. God was still with Joseph. Even when people betrayed him, God never abandoned him. Sometimes our greatest disappointments become the first step toward God's greatest blessings. Joseph could not yet see it, but the God who gave him those dreams was already preparing the path that would one day change a nation. Bible reference, Genesis 37. Closing thought, when life doesn't make sense, remember this: God is still writing your story. What looks like the end may only be the beginning.
Part 2, From Slave to Prison. When Joseph arrived in Egypt, he was sold to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and captain of the guard. Though Joseph was a slave, the Lord was with him. Everything he did prospered. Potiphar noticed Joseph's honesty, wisdom, and hard work. Soon Joseph was placed in charge of the entire household. Potiphar trusted him with everything he owned, but Joseph's faith was about to be tested. Potiphar's wife tried to tempt Joseph every day. She urged him to betray his master and sin against God. Joseph refused. "How could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" he said. One day, when no one else was in the house, she grabbed Joseph's robe. Joseph ran away, leaving his cloak behind. Filled with anger, she falsely accused Joseph of attacking her. Without a fair trial, Joseph was thrown into prison. Once again, he lost everything. First his family, then his freedom, now even his reputation. Yet the Bible says, "But the Lord was with Joseph." Even inside the prison walls, God had not forgotten him. Joseph faithfully served the prison warden and earned his trust. Soon, he was placed in charge of the other prisoners. While in prison, Joseph met Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker. Both men had troubling dreams. Joseph told them, "Interpretations belong to God." With God's help, Joseph correctly explained their dreams. The cupbearer would be restored to Pharaoh, while the baker would be executed. Everything happened exactly as Joseph had said. Before the cupbearer left, Joseph asked him, "Please remember me." But the cupbearer forgot Joseph. For 2 more long years, Joseph waited in prison. Even in silence, God was still working behind the scenes.
Part 3, The Rise to Power. 2 years later, Pharaoh had 2 mysterious dreams. None of Egypt's wise men could explain them. Then the cupbearer finally remembered Joseph. Joseph was quickly brought before Pharaoh. Standing before the most powerful ruler in Egypt, Joseph humbly said, I cannot interpret dreams, but God will give Pharaoh the answer. Joseph explained that the 7 empty cows and 7 full heads of grain represented 7 years of great harvest. The 17 cows and 7 empty heads of grain represented 7 years of terrible famine that would follow. Joseph advised Pharaoh to store food during the years of abundance. Pharaoh recognized God's wisdom in Joseph. There is no one as wise as you, Pharaoh declared. That very day, Joseph was appointed governor over all Egypt, second only to Pharaoh himself. The young man who had once been sold as a slave now ruled the greatest nation of his time. During the 7 years of plenty, Joseph gathered enormous supplies of grain. Then the famine came. People from every nation traveled to Egypt seeking food. God had fulfilled his plan exactly as he promised.
Part 4: Forgiveness and God's greater plan. The famine reached Canaan. Joseph's brothers traveled to Egypt to buy food. They bowed before Egypt's governor, never realizing they were standing before the brother they had sold years earlier. In that moment, Joseph remembered the dreams God had given him as a young boy. Instead of seeking revenge, Joseph tested his brothers to see whether their hearts had changed. Eventually, Judah offered to sacrifice himself for his youngest brother, Benjamin. Joseph saw genuine repentance. Unable to hold back his emotions, Joseph wept loudly. I am Joseph, your brother, he said. His brothers were terrified. But Joseph spoke words that have inspired millions for generations. Do not be afraid. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Joseph forgave them completely. He welcomed his entire family to Egypt, where they were protected from the famine. Years later, after Jacob died, the brothers feared Joseph would finally take revenge. Instead, Joseph comforted them once again. He chose forgiveness over bitterness. Joseph's life teaches us that God can turn betrayal into blessing, pain into purpose, and suffering into salvation. No matter how dark your circumstances may seem, God's plan is greater than your pain. Bible references: Genesis 37-50. Final message: if you are waiting, hurting, or wondering where God is, remember Joseph's story. God never abandoned him, and he will never abandon those who trust him. Sometimes God prepares us in the prison before he places us in the palace. Trust his timing, trust his promises, and never stop believing that God is working all things together for good.